offense, and sometimes very bad judgment.
Watch the runner. He's not watching the runner. And Cole's still arguing. Here comes the second runner. The second runner scores. I don't believe I just saw that.
After the first month of the season, the Mets are in 4th place with a 9-10 record. Then after a loss in San Diego on May 20th, they found themselves in 5th place. And there was an increasing feeling in the Mets clubhouse that a managerial change was imminent. 10 days later, that change occurred. New manager Buddy Harrelson inherited a 20-22 record. But soon, the turnaround began. This home run by the Mets' Tom O'Malley on June 5th got the ball club started. 10 games later, Bob Ojeda beat the Cincinnati Reds, and the Mets had an 11-game winning streak. The winning streak coincided with an awesome offensive display by the straw man, Darryl Strawberry.
There's a drive, left center field, way back, home run!
Not only has Strawberry been hitting at an MVP pace, he's fielding just like an all-star. It's fun to be at Shea again. But the Mets have won 20 of their last 25 games. And for the first time this year, the Mets are in sole possession of first place. Sure-handed shortstop Kevin Elster is hoping that this black cat is a bad omen for the rest of the National League East. There is no doubt in the Mets clubhouse as to who will represent the National League East in postseason play. Buddy Ball is winning ball for the Mets. And tonight, it'll be the Dr. Doc Gooden on the mound against the St. Louis Cardinals coming up next. Age, and already he has become one of the great pitchers of his era. He has won 110 games lifetime, 10-5 this year, and in many respects it has been one of his worst seasons up till now, but he has started to turn that around. He has won 7 in a row.
Well, I think he has definitely turned his season around, but the Doc Gooden that we get tonight, we'll have to wait and see what we get after the first inning.
He last pitched last Sunday as Vince Coleman gets ready to lead it off. A switch hitter batting left-handed. .291 is his batting average. And there is ball one. Gooden had to leave the ball game last week, and he had stiffness in his shoulder. And they determined he had some kind of a muscle imbalance up there. They've been having him on some kind of a rehab work, trying to fix that. That is right to Elster, and there is one away. Coleman retired. Temperature in New York tonight, somewhere in the low 80s. Very sticky out here, but it's just right for baseball weather. Here's Ozzie Smith, the Wizard. .245 average. That's been coming up lately. When you see these Cardinals names, these are the same names, so many of them, that were so regularly in postseason play in the 80s. And many of them are doing well right now. Strike one, 2 outs.
Well, especially Vince Coleman and Willie McGee. They're having outstanding seasons.
One strike delivery, and that curveball misses. What will you be looking for from Gooden tonight, Joe, for indications as to how he's doing?
Well, how he's popping his fastball early. And if there is early indications, I would say that he doesn't have his real good fastball yet.
This is McReynolds, and he will have to play it on the bounce. A base hit for Ozzie Smith.
Well, the one thing that Dwight Gooden didn't do at the start of the game that he normally does is just turn the first fastball loose. He threw Vince Coleman like a changeup the first pitch of the ball game. That's not Doc Gooden that strikes out so many players. The one problem he's had this year is consistency as far as being one game he's overpowering, the next game he just uses finesse. But he's been able to adjust accordingly after the first inning.
And you're looking at Willie McGee, one of the National League's leading hitters. .335 is his average. There goes Ozzie. Sasser throws, and he got him. Jeffries with a tag. Sasser, they feel, is the most improved catcher in the league.
Well, you have to give Sasser the credit for this throw caught stealing, not Dwight Gooden. Dwight Gooden gives Ozzie Smith a great jump at first base. Sasser comes out, gets rid of the ball very quickly, right on the money. That was Sasser's caught stealing, not Dwight Gooden.
Ozzie almost had a reaction like, wait a minute, I had a better jump than that. You didn't tag me with any ball that time. There's a swinging strike, 1-1.
He had a great jump, and Gooden does not hold runners well. He gives him a great jump, but Sasser just came out and gunned him down. Nice play by the catcher.
So 2 down and nobody on. And that changeup is low, 2-1. That's the Cardinals' game against Gooden, and they've had success against him because they get on it and they just run like crazy against him.
Right, and that's the way to do against Dwight Gooden because he doesn't hold runners well. And Ozzie Smith can't believe that he was out, I guarantee, because he had a great jump.
We are right near LaGuardia Airport here in Flushing, in the borough of Queens, and you'll hear a lot of the action from LaGuardia as well as the action here at Shea Stadium through the night. And it's 3-1.
We talked about Ozzie Smith's jump. Watch, he's running right now. Perfect jump. He gets a good lead. He's running well, but watch the throw. Comes right in on the money, right in front of him.
Yes, he did. He looked shocked. Here's Jeffries. Plenty of time. And that is the inning. One hit for the Cardinals. Nobody left on. Mets are coming up. We'll be back. He had to come out of the ball game because of a blister problem on the middle finger of his pitching hand.
Well, the interesting thing about De Leon is that he gives up a lot less hits than innings pitched. He has given up 105 hits in 108 innings. He's always like that. He does not give up a lot of hits in a ball game, and he ends up losing a lot of close games. The Cardinals do not seem to play well when De Leon is on the mound.
Here is Darrell Boston. He's hitting .304. 7 homers, 27 RBIs, and keep in mind he started the year in the American League with the White Sox. That's foul straight back, and they got rid of him. They weren't able to make any kind of a trade for him. They finally released him, and Boston, who always seemed to have great potential, they always thought he had the abilities to become a star, but never realized that in Chicago. Now as a role player over here, he's doing awfully well. Lowered expectations too, I think, when he came here from the Mets than from what they expected of him in Chicago all those years.
A lot of times that will help a player.
No score in the game. Magadan and Jeffries will follow for the Mets in the first. Gets the plate umpire, Jerry Joyce, right in the face mask. 0-2. Jerry Joyce back of the plate. I'm not Joyce. Jerry Lane, I beg your pardon. Jerry Davis at first, Ed Montague at second, and Mike Winters is at third base.
A lot of people may remember Ed Montague, who was at third base, is a crew chief. He's the one that had the altercation with Vince Coleman, and Coleman was suspended for a week.
2 strikes to count to Boston, and that's back out of play. Cardinals have won 2 games in this 5-game series. The Mets have won 2, but those are the only 2 victories the Cardinals have against the Mets all year. They're 2-7 against New York.
That's Joe McGrain. He was in the ball game yesterday, pitched a very fine ball game for the Cardinals.
Ball 1. The Mets in this ballpark in 1990 have won 34 and lost 17. They seem to be very well suited to playing here, quite obviously. They certainly get the support here. A sellout yesterday, close to a sellout tonight. The 1-2 pitch on the way. Deep center, but McGee, plenty of room. 1 away. Boston is retired.
This is actually a pretty big ballpark. It's 338 down both lines, and in the gaps it's 371 and 410 straight away, but it's not a real favorable ballpark as far as sluggers are concerned. Depends on the way the wind is blowing whether the ball will jump out of here or not. Pretty good pitcher's park.
Ironically, one jumped out here yesterday, hit by Willie McGee to center field, the only run of the game.
Well, the ball carries better in the daytime here than it does at night, but it is really a pretty good pitcher's ballpark.
Here's Dave Magadan. We saw the Mets in the spring. He had lost that job at first base. It belonged to Mike Marshall. Well, Marshall had problems staying in the lineup. He wasn't doing that well anyway. They put Magadan in there, and he went nuts. They could not get him out of the lineup, and that put Marshall on the bench, and he was unhappy. And finally, they acceded to his request, and they traded him to Boston this weekend. Ball 1. Magadan, I remember when he first came up, they kind of compared him to a young Wade Boggs. They said he didn't have power, but made contact. He sprayed the ball around, line drive hitter.
Well, he's done well here with the Mets, not just this year, but in the past. He had a good year last year. He swung the bat well when they gave him an opportunity to play.
That is playable for Milt Thompson. Plenty of room out there. And 2 men are gone in the first inning. No score here.
He's being here last year playing in front of him, and this year the job was given to Mike Marshall.
Good curveball by De Leon.
Yeah, but I think Magadan will do a good job for them, but I think they're going to need another right-handed hitter.
Change-up, strike 2.
To be able to play first base on occasion. But I don't think they're going to find a better right-handed hitter than Mike Marshall was to replace him. De Leon throws a fork ball. He throws a good slider. This is a good changeup right here, and Jeffries way out in front.
Now it's 1-2. Jeffries has never had a hit against De Leon.
That doesn't surprise me. De Leon is a very fine pitcher. He gives up very few hits.
2 down, nobody on.
And Jeffries has only been in the league, you know, a year and a half, so that can happen.
Darryl Strawberry is on deck. He would be next. 2 down. And he will be next. That's a base hit for Jeffries. The first one ever for Jeffries against Jose De Leon, and that keeps the inning going for the straw man, Darryl Strawberry.
Well, he adjusted to the pitch very well. It was a changeup. We saw him fool completely on a changeup 2 pitches earlier. And watch this. This is a changeup, goes down and away, and he does a good job of keeping his head right on the ball. Watch his head. Stays right there. Nice piece of hitting by Jeffries.
And there's Strawberry. 2 down. Jeffries at first. And he curves in. Ball 1. Strawberry with 25 home runs. Most of it lately. 287 for the year. Among the tied for the league lead in home runs. 2-0.
I would think that De Leon, if he has his good stuff, his blister's not bothering him on his hand, he would go after Strawberry inside with the fastball. So far, he stayed away from it, and I think he can get hurt if he stays out there with Strawberry.
And ball 3. Doesn't look like he wants anything to do at all with Strawberry here.
And he does have a good enough fastball that he can pitch him middle of the plate in. Strawberry has some weaknesses inside.
3-0 the count. And he walks him on 4 pitches. So Jeffries moves to second. Strawberry takes first. 2 on with 2 out, and Kevin McReynolds is coming up. There's Red Schoendienst, veteran baseball man, an outstanding second baseman, hero of an all-star game back in the 50s. And he had great success as a manager of this club back in the 60s.
And an all-around nice guy.
And as you pointed out earlier on, Joe, before the game started, they've had a winning record under Red Schoendienst.
He's only going to be around until next Tuesday or Wednesday, though. He said after that they're going to name a new manager either Tuesday or Wednesday of this week.
They go from here to Philadelphia. They have tomorrow off. They begin a series in Philly on Tuesday. And there's a curve for ball 1 to McReynolds. No score, but the Mets with a first inning threat here, developing after they were 2 down. De Leon, 29 years of age. Had a lot of success for the Cardinals last year. It was a 16-game winner for them. And that was the perfect pitch from where De Leon's standing. 1-1 the count.
Well, as I mentioned, he has a real good fastball and a fork ball and a changeup. He has good stuff. He has not been able to put everything together for one season because he has good enough stuff to be a 20-game winner.
The 1-1 pitch. Into left field. That's going to fall for a base hit. Here comes Jeffries around third, and he'll score. The Mets have gone ahead 1-0. Strawberry holds it second.
Well, he tries to get a fastball in on McReynolds, and he doesn't get it in far enough. It's right about middle of the plate in, and McReynolds lines it to left. Coleman cannot get there in time. The ball was hooking away from him, and the Mets lead 1-0.
McReynolds' 50th RBI of the year. He's not had a real strong year for what he's done in the past, but he's also fully capable of getting hot himself. They've been able to get hot and go to the top of the division without big numbers from him. Now look at those numbers. 347 for Mackey Sasser. They always felt he could have hit, but his abilities behind the plate left a lot to be desired. But he's worked a lot with Doc Edwards, the coach, who himself was a catcher for many years. That is to the right side and gloved by Walling to Ozzie for the force out on McReynolds. And just like that, the inning is over. But the Mets get a 2-out rally going and get the first run of the game. The end of one.
They grew up together or lived together for a while in Florida.
That's why Sheffield said they were like brothers growing up. Dwight's family was like his family. This is Denny Walling. And he takes ball one. Actually, Sheffield is Dwight's nephew.
Right.
And that's a call and strike on the outside. Next Sunday, we're scheduled to be in Baltimore as the Kansas City Royals and the Baltimore Orioles are going to go at it. And Joe, you're not going to be there. You've got a date in Cooperstown.
Yeah, I think I'm going to miss that one. Since I have a choice there.
You have no choice. It's your destiny. Going into the Hall of Fame next Sunday. Here's the 1-1 pitch on the way. Jeffries with an easy hop. And Walling is retired. Again, Pedro Guerrero's out of action right now. He hit a foul ball down off his foot the other night. And it's kept him out of action for a couple of days.
He was really limping badly when he came into the clubhouse today.
They've got tomorrow off, and he took yesterday off. That'd give him 3 days off before the game Tuesday. They're hoping he'll be able to get back in there Tuesday night. That lineup, that's a gaping hole when Guerrero's not in there. Terry Pendleton got a lot of RBIs for this club, but he's not had a real strong year at the bat. Only a .223 average. There's Big Pete. Pedro Guerrero, one of the great hitters, one of the great RBI men in the game.
Yes, he is. Very good clutch hitter.
And he blew that one by him. 2 strikes. Pendleton, talk about a slump. He's had 6 hits in 62 at-bats since the All-Star break.
That's a real slump.
He's going to have a hard time getting to Cooperstown with those kind of numbers. 2-strike pitch. Just a bit low. Have you got your speech written yet?
No, I've been working on it. I'm going to wait and spend a couple of days there and get a little better feel of how, what I want to say up there. I'm just not completely sure right now.
Strike 3 called on the outside corner. Gooden got him looking. First strikeout for Dr. K.
Well, Dwight Gooden throws a real good live fastball here. Right on the outside corner. Nothing that Pendleton can do with it. Watch how he's got a real smooth motion right here. Very easy, relaxed motion. Hides the ball well. Now he's exploding it right at you. The ball just explodes over the outside corner.
Here now is Jose Oquendo. Batting left-handed, ball 1. Joe Morgan and Jim Palmer inducted into the Hall of Fame. They will be next Sunday afternoon. Both with ESPN. We're thrilled for both of them, but for me, particularly for you, Joe.
Thank you.
Are you sleeping well at night? Or are you rehearsing that speech even in your sleep now?
No, I haven't. I guess from the moment that it was announced that I was elected, I think that's the part that I've dreaded the most, is making a speech. Not so much of talking in front of the people, but talking with Willie Mays, Ted Williams, all these great players behind me, and standing up in front of them. That's pretty tough. That's a tough act, I think.
That's foul. 2-2. Well, in 1963, the Houston Colt 45s compiled a 66 and 96 record, and Joe Morgan appeared in 8 games.
I didn't help him a lot, did I?
Played in only 10. Well, you notice the record was pretty bad. That's a fly ball down the left field line that will go back out of play. Coin we saw is a commemorative coin in honor of Joe Morgan's achievement. All those years in the big leagues, now going in the Hall of Fame. The Chicagoland Processing Corporation announcing that it is issuing 15,000 limited edition silver commemorative coins. Each coin individually numbered to enhance its collectability.
I've got one for you also.
Hey, Jeffries can't quite get the handle on that one. I don't think it mattered. Oquendo was going to beat that one out. Gooden slowed it up as it was headed for center field.
Well, it was not anything that Jeffries could do to make the play any better. Watch, he charges the ball, barehands it, but not a lot you can do. Because if he catches it with his glove, he's not going to have a shot at Oquendo. And I think once Gooden slowed it down, that was the end of it.
Oquendo with the Cardinals' second hit of the game, and here is Tom Pagnazzi. Todd Zeile, who's been the rookie catcher, the regular catcher for the Cardinals this year, got hit in the back with the backswing of a hitter the other day. He's kind of banged up anyway, so we'll give him another couple of days off here.
And it doesn't hurt to give him a day off against Dwight Gooden.
You don't think he argued too much?
No, I doubt it very seriously.
One of the Hall of Fame. Yeah, you have a coin with your likeness on it. Wow. That's better than a baseball card.
Yes, it is.
Jeffries can't handle it, but they get the foot out. Elster there. And Oquendo forced out. That's the inning. One hit for the ESPN Sunday Night Baseball. This is John Miller along with Joe Morgan. The Mets are coming up. Tom O'Malley will lead it off. Well, to send along our best wishes to Howard Johnson. Howard was having terrible headaches, and he was not able to play tonight. He was in the hospital for a while. His shot to Walling. Nice play over to De Leon for the out.
This is unusual for Tom O'Malley because he doesn't pull the ball that much. He hits the ball pretty much straight away, and he gets a fastball and he yanks it down to Walling. It's a real nice play by Walling because this is hit like a shot right in front of him. Goes down on his knees to stay level with the ball, and he's able to make the play. Feeds to De Leon. A lot of players go down on their knees so they can get closer to the level of the ball. That way they can gauge the hop a little better.
Here's Kevin Elster, the Mets shortstop. Pitchers love it when Elster's in the lineup. Very steady glove out there at shortstop. But you put somebody in scoring position this year and he gets him home. He's been very productive. He's hitting only .205. He's got 44 RBIs. That's back out of play. Willie McGee's one of the RBI men of the St. Louis Cardinals, and he's got 47. Hitting third and up near the top of the order for much of the year. This guy's hitting eighth in front of the pitcher. Driven in 44.
He's done a great job as far as RBI runs batted in is concerned.
The 1-1 pitch. And there's Ozzie. Out number 2. Let's go back and look at that play that ended the top half of this inning.
This is Jeffries. Now watch his head right here. This is an in-between hop, so it's going to be a tough play, but watch his head. He turns it to the left before the ball gets there. No way you can catch it that way, but it was a tough hop, and he kept it in front of him and flipped to second base. It turns out to be a very good play.
When you get that in-between hop, though, awfully tough not to look away. That would be the natural reaction, right?
Exactly. You have, but as long as you stay in front of it, you're doing as well as you can do.
We've got 2 down for the Mets, and here is Dwight Gooden. Walling's got room, it seems, and he makes the grab, and that is the inning. The Mets go down 1-2-3 in the second. It proved to be a very good strategy. Gibson had a series to remember on the mound and at the plate. Here hitting a home run at Fenway Park in Game 7, which he won. One of 3 victories for Gibson in that World Series. The final out gave the Redbirds the title. Gibson was then voted the World Series MVP. Bob Gibson, another Hall of Famer that Joe Morgan will be joining at Cooperstown next week, along with Jim Palmer. And there are the current Cardinals. Maybe you saw Bob Gibson with Dave Marish on Baseball Tonight before our telecast this evening.
Well, I tell you, Bob Gibson was one of the toughest competitors to ever take the mound. And I tell you what, when he walked to the mound, he looked at you and he was like saying, "You can't hit me." I mean, that's the expression that he wore when he walked to the mound every time out. Great, great pitcher.
Here's Milt Thompson. He's been one of the real puzzles of the Cardinals this year. He's always hit around 280 or so every year in his career. Real useful player. He's been a terrible slump this year, and he cannot get out of it.
Well, what happens is if you start off slowly, you start tinkering with your stance, your swing, and then you get confused. And I think that's what happened to Milt Thompson.
Strike 2.
This is one of the few teams that he's hit well against this year. He's hit .327 against the Mets.
He'll be followed by De Leon and then Coleman. Against the Mets, he's hit well this year, but not against Dwight Gooden this year or any other.
Good curveball.
Second strikeout for Dwight. One away.
When Dwight Gooden has the overhand curveball to go with his good fastball, every team is in trouble. Now he's developed a changeup, which makes him that much tougher. This is an overhand curveball right over the outside corner, break straight down. Thompson could not hold up.
Here is De Leon. He's trailing 1-0. 5 hits and 37 at bats this season. He may not take Gooden deep in this at bat. A little bit of a breeze. It's blowing in from right and across toward left at Shea Stadium tonight. Not much of a wind though. Pirates won this afternoon, beating Philadelphia 2-1. That's a fastball. Ooh, a little bit low. 2-0 the count. Usually fly. That's right out above the center field fence. You see 79 degrees. The wind only 5 miles per hour. Just a gentle breeze.
Well, if Dwight Gooden was on the mound, all the Cardinals would be saying this is a wonderful night to play a baseball game in New York.
When you face a guy like Gooden, I mean, do guys fear him?
Well, I don't think you fear him as much as you just respect the fact that if he has his good stuff, it's going to be tough for you to get a base hit. I think Willie Mays once told me, he said, you fight off the real good pitchers. Just try to get one base hit, and you beat up on the other guys. And that's the philosophy he always used.
He hit it. Nice play by Magadan, and Gooden will get the put out. 2 down. 2 down. You go to the top of the batting order for Vince Coleman. They've got a beach ball over behind the Mets dugout. That's what all the crowd reaction is about. The ball now into the Mets dugout.
I think they've lost it now.
Jim Tuffle's got it now. There's Ron Darling sitting to his right. Uh-oh, he's going to give it back. It's back in play.
Now let me ask you a question. I hear a lot of writers and people complaining about the wave. Do you think the wave is worse than a beach ball being passed around?
I'm not sure I understand either one of them.
No.
I'd rather watch Vince Coleman hit. I thought we were out in Anaheim when I first saw that beach ball. 2 down, and here is Vince Coleman, who lined to short his first time. Coleman created some controversy earlier this week. He always does anyway. Guys don't like him. And steal bases and create a lot of trouble for you. That's ball 1. But with the score 8-4 in the 8th inning at Busch Stadium against the Cubs, and Willie McGee at the plate with 2 strikes, he stole home.
I read a quote, I guess Ryan Sandberg and a couple of Cubs said that he showed them up. See, I disagree with that. 8-4 is not too big a lead, because a grand slam can tie the ball game. So who's to decide when the game is safe? And the other thing about that is Vince Coleman thing is he steals bases. That's his job. Now take a Reggie Jackson who hits home runs. When the score was 8-4, did Reggie stop hitting home runs? So the point I'm making there is, when is enough enough? I've seen Reggie Jackson, some of the other home run hitters, with the score 10-1 swing hard, foul balls back. So why is that okay if Vince Coleman is not supposed to steal a base to help his team win a game? 8-4 is not an unsurmountable lead. I've seen a lot of teams come back from a 4-run deficit in the 8th and 9th innings.
Now Roger Craig might differ with you. What was it, 3 years ago the Cardinals were stealing bases and they had a big lead against the Giants?
Well, what is a big lead? Now if it's 8-0 in the 8th inning, I agree. You don't steal the base. But 8-4 is not too big a lead for a guy to steal a base.
Memory does not serve. It seems to me that might have been 8-3, something like that.
No, it was 8-4.
I mean, the other night,
right.
it was 8-4
the other night, right?
But when the Giants were there, and what I'm getting at is the Cardinals, they weren't stealing home. They stole some bases.
Right.
And the Giants started throwing at it then.
Well,
and then there was a big brawl that ensued afterward.
Right. Well,
Whitey Herzog said, hey, you tell your guys not to hit any home runs, and I'll tell my guys not to steal any more bases.
That's a pretty good comeback. But and I don't say this because I stole bases, because I didn't steal bases when it was 4 runs, we were 4 runs ahead or whatever. But I don't think that 4 runs is out of the question simply because a grand slam can tie the ball game. So you're not out of the ball game. So, I mean, that means the other team is quit then.
2-2 pitch. And that's a base hit for Coleman. That's the way they like to see Coleman hit. Just chop the ball, use his speed, put it in play. And that's the way he's been doing it a lot this year.
He's done that better this year than ever before. And I think he's having his best year.
Now, he's one of those guys who could become a free agent.
So he stays right on top of the ball, hits it over the mound, and once it goes over the mound, it's a base hit. Because even if the shortstop catches it behind the bag, he's not going to be able to throw Coleman out.
Well, it's a 1-0 Mets lead. Do you have a feeling Coleman might try and steal here? Ozzie, the batter. They pitch out. Coleman started as if he were going to run. Did he pick something up?
Well, he could have picked up Dwight Gooden's motion. He looked like he changed his delivery a little bit. He speeded it up to get the ball to home plate. And if you're a good base stealer, you can read those types of things. A good base stealer can read when there is a pitch out.
Coleman is back. Mackey Sasser is the only Mets catcher ever to throw out Vince Coleman. And he did it this year. Actually, although the graphics said otherwise, he's done it twice this year. One and 0 the count. Again, Gooden goes over there. Coleman for the season has stolen 55 bases against all comers. He's been caught only 12 times, but twice by Sasser, who already threw out Ozzie Smith back in the first inning of this game. 2 down. There he goes. Ball is a strike. Safe. Number 56 for Vince Coleman.
One of the things that happens when you are a base stealer like Vince Coleman, the catcher knows he has to hurry, and he rushes too much. And we'll see if he gets as good a jump as Ozzie Smith did. Actually, I think Ozzie had a little better jump. But Sasser knows he has to hurry with Coleman running, and he doesn't get off quite as good a throw as he did against Ozzie Smith. That's what intimidation will do for you. And Vince Coleman, Ricky Henderson, those type of guys intimidate the catchers a lot more than Ozzie Smith does.
Well, now Vince is trying to distract Gooden out there.
I don't think he was trying to distract him. I think he was going to take off for third if he would have had Gooden timed properly there. He was using the timing mechanism. He was going to go on his first move, and Gooden held the ball a little bit on him. Good move by Gooden.
Once he has stolen second base, all of a sudden Ozzie Smith becomes a threat as an RBI man. The curveball is in for called strike 2. 1 ball and 2 strikes. Willie McGee would be next. 2 down in the 3rd inning. Ozzie is the one Cardinal who's had great success against Gooden over the years, hitting better than .360 against him, including his base hit tonight in the 1st inning. Here it comes. Very high. 2-2. Ozzie, after a terrible start this year, he's hitting .280 in the month of July. There are his numbers against Gooden through his first at bat tonight. .382, better than what I thought. Two pitch down the left field line, slicing, foul. Nice catch.
That's why he bought that seat. We just made his year.
Will you marry me?
Ozzie Smith just made his year.
That guy's sat in that same seat, Joe, for 15 years. Brought his glove to every game. It's the first one he's ever caught.
He leaned out a little bit to make the catch.
Nice play.
Almost a diving catch.
I think she's going to marry him.
if he gives her the baseball.
Doesn't look like he's going to, though. 2-2 to Ozzie. Curveball. Gooden's got it. Nice play. This side is retired. So the Cardinals get the lady, a great lady in the harbor. And of course that means we're in New York. There's that gigantic scoreboard, part of the landscape at Shea Stadium. Here come the Mets. Top of the order, Darrell Boston looking at a called strike from Jose De Leon. John Miller along with Joe Morgan. The Mets are ahead 1-0. The outfield straightaway for this left-handed hitter. He's got some power. And that's a ball one. By the way, we mentioned Howard Johnson, and again we want to send along our best wishes to Howard, who we understand is watching tonight. And he has spasms of the neck muscles called cervical myositis. He had a sleepless night because of it. Ball is foul, and he was transported to Roosevelt Hospital in New York. Released today at about 3 o'clock. He should be able to travel with the team tomorrow to Montreal, or Tuesday when they go up there, I guess. But he did not come to the ballpark for the game tonight. So Hojo had not been feeling well.
Sound like you were hanging out with the doctors. Cervical myositis. You've been hanging around doctors?
Oh, you had that plenty of time. 1 ball, 2 strikes. That's fine. You know who, the guy who knows all that is Palmer. He could quote that too. 1-2. Let's go back, take a look at that Vince Coleman steal in greater detail, Joe.
Well, watch the difference. Sasser comes up. He has plenty of time right there, but he tries to get a bit of the ball quickly. Doesn't have a good grip on it. It hits about 15 feet behind the mound.
1-2 pitch. Back to the screen.
But he knows when Vince Coleman is running, he has to hurry. And that's the intimidation factor. It just puts a little more pressure on the catcher to get rid of the ball quickly and accurately.
I like that shot where you can see the ball and the seams and going into second base, almost like you're out there watching the play.
To give Sasser credit, though, Vince Coleman had stolen 53 bases in a row against the Mets before he was caught by Sasser. And he's caught him twice since. But he had never been thrown out by the Mets until this year. Can you imagine that? 53 straight stolen bases he had in his career against the Mets.
1-2 pitch to Boston, and De Leon misses. 2 balls, 2 strikes. 1-0 Mets ahead. Magadan and Jeffries will follow Boston here in the 3rd inning. Speaking of Boston, Boston was a winner today in the American League at Detroit, 13-3. But Toronto also a winner over Texas, 10-8. That's out of play. So it's Toronto by 1 over Boston. Baltimore a winner at Kansas City, 4-1. A former Mets prospect. Played a little bit for the Mets in 1987. John Mitchell won that game for Baltimore today. Baltimore 4 games out. Meanwhile, the San Francisco Giants in the National League West, they beat Cincinnati again. 4-0. Gorelt shut them out. Long run from McGee, and he can't get it. Trying for second is Boston, and McGee can't find the handle. Boston hustling in that one. He never hesitated, rounding first, and he made it easily into second base.
Well, Willie McGee is one of the best outfielders in the National League. He's won 11 Gold Gloves. You see him charge. The ball drops short. He tries to keep it in front of him. Now, if he can pick it up right there, I think he would have had a shot at Boston. But his body was still moving forward, and there wasn't much he could do.
That's a single for Boston. It'll be an error charge to Willie McGee. Single and an error. Magadan into right center. Base hit. Boston rounding third, and he'll score. Dave Magadan has given the Mets a 2-0 lead.
Magadan just kind of serves this ball in the right center field. He doesn't hit it that well, but he's out in front of it, see, and he just kind of flicks it over to the infield for a base hit. You can see Jose Oquendo chasing it, but too far on the outfield grass for him to catch up with.
So there's Magadan, his 37th RBI of the year. He's at first base. Magadan is not a fellow that steals bases. He has not even attempted to steal one this year. Here's Jeffries. He singled and started a rally in the first inning. A switch hitter batting left-handed. Nobody out. A run is in. Ball one.
This is the way that De Leon loses a lot of ball games. The Mets have scored a run here. They haven't hit a ball solid yet. They blew one in the center field and that soft off the end of the bat line drive, and he's down 2-0.
Into shallow left field, and Coleman will have to chase after this one. Magadan will stop at second base, and now Strawberry's coming up, and the table is set for the big man. 2 on and nobody out.
Well, Jeffries hits another one off the end of the bat, and it becomes a base hit. And I think Mike Rourke wants to go out and talk to Jose De Leon and settle him down, because none of these balls have been hit well, but they've scored a run and have a couple of runners on.
2-0 Mets. Strawberry up. This is an early, perhaps key moment in the ball game. A chance here for the Mets to bust it open early with Gooden on the mound. Now Dwight Gooden, of course, he can beat you with just the 2 runs when he's out. But now Strawberry certainly is fully capable of making it 5-0. He's hit some incredible home runs. He doesn't just hit them, he hits them, and they become memories for decades. Now you see the ball strikeout there. Look at the word ball. You see the letter A. There's a couple of light bulbs that are out. Strawberry a couple of weeks ago hit a home run that hit that A. Now that is some kind of shot.
That's a long shot.
I mean, that scoreboard is not sitting right behind the wall. It's a ways back from that wall. And that is way up on the scoreboard. An incredible shot a couple of weeks ago by Strawberry. All right, the talking is over, and now De Leon's going to have to get it done. Magadan at second, Jeffries at first. Time is taken.
Well, it'll be interesting to see how De Leon goes after Strawberry. He threw everything away the first time up and walked him. I think he has to go inside if he's going to be effective against Strawberry.
And he keeps it away.
Well, see, when you just stay out there with a guy like Strawberry who has long arms, he likes the ball away so he can extend his arms and get to the ball. You're kind of doing him a favor. If you keep him honest by coming inside every once in a while, you shorten his stroke.
2-0. Well, he's thrown him 6 pitches tonight, and they have all been out of the strike zone. I mean, he's running out of room to maneuver here. There's nobody out. You've got McReynolds, who already has driven home a run against him in this game, on deck. So you're Strawberry now. It's 2-0. You've got everything going your way.
Well, you look for a pitch that you know that you can drive. You look for a pitch out over the plate, and you look for a certain speed.
Here it comes. That is to Wallen. Gets one at second, and Ozzie will hang on to it. Down to third base goes Magadan.
Well, I think Strawberry got the pitch that he wanted, a fastball out over the plate, and he pulled it hard to the first baseman, but right at Walling.
Mike Cubbage there with Strawberry at first, and over at third you saw Hiller with Magadan.
See, the ball is out away from him. He extends his arms, and he hit the ball pretty hard, but it's right at Walling. Ozzie Smith takes the one at second. Can't make any more.
Well, here's the big burly left fielder of the Mets, Kevin McReynolds. He singled home the first run of the game back in the first inning. A clutch 2-out hit. Cardinals looking for a double play ball. Curveball taken, ball 1. Ozzie is straight up at shortstop. The second baseman, Oquendo, pulled over toward the middle. Both pulled in a little bit. Double play depth. Walling is on the bag with Strawberry over at first base. Strawberry has stolen 13 times this year, keep in mind. De Leon holding a long while. Way outside, and a save by Pagnozzi. Bullpen activity for the Cardinals, meanwhile. Just in case. Here is Frank DiPino, the left-hander, veteran. Out beyond the left field fence, warming up for the Cardinals. 2-0 to McReynolds. 2-0. The Mets ahead. 2 on, 1 out. Fouled it back. Gets the job done. Fine outfielder. There goes Strawberry. Pagnozzi's going to throw. And they got him. Oquendo with the tag.
That was a good play by Pagnozzi. He did not look down at third base to check Magadan. He knew that Strawberry was stealing the base, and it wasn't a double steal, so he comes up firing. You get a lot of catchers, they will look at that runner at third base, and they lose the runner going to second. Pagnozzi didn't even look at third. He just came up and fired to second.
So the result there, right to the bag. Now a runner at third and 2 down. And McReynolds draws the walk.
This is what I was talking about. Watch Pagnozzi. He doesn't even look at third. He just comes up and fires to second base. That's the proper play in this situation. A lot of catchers come up and they look at third and then throw to second, and Strawberry would have been
2 down. Sasser into the game hitting .347. Curve misses from De Leon. Ball 1. Well, what Pagnozzi did then was he assessed the situation ahead of time, and he already knew well ahead of time what he was going to do, what and if, and almost did a little managing back there.
Very rarely will you pull a double steal with 1 out. It's usually with 2 outs.
And it's a 1 ball 1 strike. But he knew he had Magadan over there. What if he'd had, say, Boston or Jeffries, guys with speed over there?
Well, then he has to make a decision whether he's going to check him or not. See, I believe you just come up and fire and get the guy at second base. You've got a shortstop to cut it off if the guy comes back from third base.
Popped him up. And Pendleton comes down the line from third. And that is the inning. So an early key point in this ball game, a point at which the Mets could have busted it open, and De Leon gets out of it with just the 1-run scoring. The Cardinals are still very much alive after 3.
Beautiful crowd here. Everyone's enjoying the ball game.
Here's Willie McGee. Yesterday's hero for the Cardinals. He drove in the only run of the game with a home run against David Cohn. McGee, a chance at a batting title this year, and thanks to leading the league. McGee has been so hot lately that he has projected himself into the race. He's had a great hitting streak going.
Well, he's a switch hitter, which is to his advantage, and he hits very well from both sides.
He's hit safely in 19 consecutive games, and usually with at least 2 hits in those games. He had 33 hits in those 19 games. For the month of July, he's hitting .404. That's a strike on the outside. He said, Joe, that he says for him this year the difference just been he's been healthy,
right,
and he's able to go out and do the things he can do. Of course, he was an MVP just 5 years ago. Hit .353 that year for the whole season. So he's capable.
He's hitting .335 left-handed and .336 right-handed.
They appeal that one, and Mike Winters, the third base umpire, denies the Mets appeal.
Well, it was a fastball up and away. McGee started for it, and then he decided no, it was out of the strike zone, and he held up.
2-2 pitch. That is foul. Fought off the curveball.
I don't think I've ever seen anyone this late in the season hitting almost the same percentage from both sides of the plate. I mean, he's hitting .336 from the right side and .335 from the left.
2-2 pitch. Back to the screen. Usually the lament for switch hitters is when they bat right-handed against their lefties. They're only facing those lefties maybe 30% of the time.
So they do not hit as well from the right side normally as they do from the left. But I mean, he's doing it perfectly. He's at 239 at bats left-handed and 152 right-handed.
3-2. Walling and Pendleton will follow.
He's got a home run from both sides. He has 2 home runs, 1 left and 1 right. So this guy is almost perfect as a switch hitter.
3-2 pitch from Gooden. Curveball. McReynolds, a long run. He's got it. One away in the fourth inning. Joe, let's go back and take a look. You were talking about that play by Pagnazzi in the Mets half of the third.
Well, I think this is the key play of the ball game so far. The Mets had a chance to break it up. Watch Pagnazzi. He just comes out and fires to second base. No hesitation. Now, if he takes time and hesitates, looks at third, Darryl Strawberry would have been safe at second base. Oquendo makes the tag.
And it looked like it was kind of a painful play for Oquendo there.
Well, he got spiked a little bit, but that goes with the job at second base. You have to stick your glove in there.
Strawberry came in with the spikes a little bit high there. One strike the count to Denny Walling. 2-0 Mets ahead, fourth inning. That's too high. Cardinals have had a problem this year in generating offense. They do not have a lot of power. They traded Brunansky, one of their top home run hitters. Now Guerrero's hurting. Zeal is also hurting. Those are the only two hitters who are in double figures for home runs for them. They're both out tonight. 2-1. They really need a couple of power hitters in this lineup. Now, Tuesday's the trading deadline. Still many rumors swirling about, not only with the Cardinals, but a lot of ball clubs now as to possible deals. The Cardinals have so many guys who can become free agents that they are naturally seeing rumors swirl about those fellas.
Yeah.
The idea being the Cardinals would like to, maybe if they're not going to sign a free agent, get another player or players for him now so as not to come up empty-handed at the end of the year. But Dal Maxwell, the general manager, says, well, nobody's offering anything for these guys.
You see the patch on Denny Walling's left shoulder, AAB Jr. That's August A. Bush Jr., who owned the ball club and passed away. That's patches on in remembrance of August A. Bush Jr. And he died in 1989. There it is. It's a patch. He was the owner of the Cardinals all those years. Most of you probably remember him riding in during the World Series.
At the Clydesdales.
Very popular person.
3-2. Game-winning streak in progress right now. 3-2 pitch. Fastball. That's a base hit into left center field. McReynolds will cut it off and hold Walling to a single.
Denny Walling's a good fastball hitter, especially low fastballs out over the plate.
Now here is Terry Pendleton. Pendleton trying to get out of this slump, one of the worst of his career. 6 for 63. Center field, and he's got a hit right there. Walling will have to hold at second base. That's 5 hits now for the Cardinals against Dwight Gooden. He had an infield hit his first time. Into shallow left, but McReynolds was playing him shallow. 2 down. Walling and Pendleton having to hold at second and first respectively. 2 down, 2 on. The batter will be Tom Pagnazzi. 2-0 Mets in the fourth inning.
Tom Pagnazzi.
Been a tough year for the rookie catcher Todd Zeal. He's had to go through the learning process. He's been thrown into the battle, and he's taken his lumps both figuratively and literally.
Well, I think that makes you appreciate the job that Sandy Alomar Jr. has done in Cleveland. Coming into the league as a rookie catcher is a tough job.
Strike one to Tom Pagnazzi.
The real reason is you do not have time to think about yourself or the problems you're having. You have to call pitches. You're right in the ball game every pitch. You have to work with the pitcher. So it's a little tougher job to break in as a catcher than it is, say, an outfielder.
Curveball misses. 1 ball, 1 strike. Todd Zeal with 10 home runs. We will say that that is the highest home run total by a Cardinals rookie catcher ever. So that big ballpark down there, tough to hit home runs anyway. He's hit 10 of them.
Well, he's a very strong individual, so I expect him to do well in the next year or so.
Strike 2. 1 ball, 2 strikes. 2 on and 2 out. Denny Walling, the runner at second. Terry Pendleton, the runner at first. Both ready to go on anything in the fourth inning. The Mets leading 2-0. Dwight Gooden. Giving up a few hits, a few more hits than he ordinarily would figure to give up. We're only in the 4th inning, given up 5 hits, but he has not walked anybody. The 1-2 pitch is in the dirt. Blocked by Sasser. 2 balls, 2 strikes. It's been kind of a grueling series here. The Cardinals got to town Thursday, and there was a doubleheader, and then a ball game Friday night, yesterday, and again tonight. 5 games here in 4 days between these 2 ball clubs. They've had some great pennant races in the 80s. Back in 1985, Gooden went 24-4, but the Cardinals edged out the Mets that year. Gooden had it hit off his hand. Jeffries throws it out. And they're all going to go over and see if Gooden's all right. Jeffries said, hey, nice assist there, Doc. You don't like to see their star pitcher reach his hand out like that, though. The young Mets fan looks a little nervous right now. It's only 2-0. He was open for 5-0 by now. Tom O'Malley. Strike 1 from De Leon. O'Malley been with the Giants, the White Sox, the Orioles, the Expos, now the Mets. They have found a home here with the Mets. They like him as a pinch hitter and a guy they could use on nights like this. Howard Johnson unavailable. Could play a little first base. He's had good success as a pinch hitter. 1-1 the count. The rap on him was always, hey, you're a third baseman, you're a one-position guy, and you don't hit home runs.
Well, he really didn't have a position. I think that was the key. But now he's always been a pretty good hitter. He can put the ball in play, so he can do a good job pinch hitting.
Caught by Denny Walling.
Well, he's hit 2 balls very hard, and he doesn't have anything to show for it. Denny Walling has picked him twice. This is a line drive. It starts to hook away from Walling, and Walling gets there just in time.
Here's Kevin Elster now, the shortstop, grounded to short his first time. Dwight Gooden is due up next, and he is coming out of the on-deck circle. We're all wondering if everything's all right with Dwight after his pitching hand got in the way of that ground ball. Let's take a look at that play again.
Most power pitchers, if they're right-handed, they fall off to the left side of the mound, and he does so here. Now the ball's hit directly back through the mound, and it's just a reaction. He sticks his bare hand out there.
Willie McGee's got plenty of room out there in center field, and Elster is retired, out number 2. And that
if they had time to think about it, they would not stick their bare hands out there, but it's just a reaction that happens when the ball is hit back through the box.
There's Dwight Gooden. He fouled the first his first time. Well, last Sunday we were in Kansas City. We saw Storm Davis pitch. Storm had just come off the disabled list. He'd had a bad knuckle. Ball hit back into him. Hit him on the bare hand. No way the Mets can afford Dwight Gooden being on the shelf for a while in this pennant race. Pirates hanging right in there despite this amazing run that the Mets have been on.
Pirates have a very good ball club.
Well, they've survived some things too here. Bonilla's been slumping. Van Slyke was slumping.
But Barry Bonds hasn't been slumping. I think that's the key.
What a year.
You hear a lot of talk about most valuable player candidates. I think he is a legitimate most valuable player candidate in the National League.
There's his strike. De Leon. Gooden taking all the way. Now with a 3-1 count. Pirates won today, beating Philadelphia 2-1. Montreal lost, however, in Canada to the Cubs 2-1. Chased a high one, and it is 3-2.
When you watch De Leon pitch this inning and then watch Gooden when he goes back out there, they're very similar in that they're both power pitchers, but they have a very easy motion. Their windup is very slow, and they do not jump at you. Very easy motion. Then they turn the ball loose.
That's caught by Ozzie Smith. Well, Dwight Gooden Tuesday night, and if he does, he would be due up next Sunday. We'd see him against George Brett, who is red hot. Brett is almost unconscious over there in the American League right now. Saw him this weekend. He's been hitting about .480 since the All-Star break, and he's hitting everything right now. Be there next Sunday night, 8 o'clock Eastern, with Sunday Night Baseball. The Orioles And the Royals, you're talking about McDonald running off the mound. He's so excited. In his first start, the Orioles scored their first run of the game, and he jumped up and he wanted to run out on the field and shake hands with the guy who scored the run. Al Jackson, the pitching coach, said, Ben, why don't you just wait for him to get down in here and then give him a real nice handshake then. He's just about a year out of college. 2-1 the count. Dwight Gooden, what was he, 19 when he burst upon the scene? Just a ways out of high school. And he set the all-time record for strikeouts by a rookie, besting the record that had lasted for, what, 30 years, set by Herb Score. As was Davy Johnson's rookie year as manager. The Mets went from a terrible ball club to a very strong ball club in that 1 year. And Dwight Gooden was right in the middle of it. 2-2 the count to Milt Thompson. De Leon will follow, and then Vince Coleman. We're in the 5th. The Mets are leading the Cardinals 2-0. Thompson struck out his first time. McReynolds, this one keeps slicing, and finally runs out of room. In amongst the spectators it goes. 3-2.
Well, he said he was going to catch him.
We just didn't realize he was going to catch him in about a week and a half. Yeah. He walked him. That was a close one. Ball forward to Milt Thompson. Coming up Tuesday now, don't forget, Nolan Ryan will again try for number 300. We saw him right here on ESPN last Wednesday, but Bob Guerin of the Yankees made his life miserable. And home run by Guerin, who had a big night, made it 7-3, and Ryan did not get the decision. The Rangers did come back and win that ball game. So Nolan tries for number 300 again. That'll be Tuesday night, 8:30 Eastern, 7:30 Central. The Rangers at County Stadium in Milwaukee. Here is Jose De Leon. Thompson at first. Thompson's got excellent speed. He has stolen 17 times, been caught twice.
Yeah, he has excellent speed, pretty good base stealer.
O'Malley very shallow at third. Thompson back again.
Well, they're expecting Jose De Leon to bunt in this situation, and so O'Malley comes charging in from third base. Place for him to bunt it, of course, is down to first baseman Dave Magadan.
Magadan having to hold on the bag till the ball is thrown. Pulled away from it, and it was called ball one. O'Malley was right in on top of De Leon. You see O'Malley playing very shallow at third. When Gooden throws that pitch, he'll be within, what, 12 feet of De Leon, or he was in that last one. Magadan is staying back in the bag until Gooden delivers the pitch. And he did it. First base side. Magadan to Jeffries covering. Sacrifice worked very nicely.
Basically hitting with no one on. You'd rather have him bunt him over and make sure you get a shot at scoring one run using your pitcher to sacrifice.
There's a lot of time in the game yet, and we're only in the 5th inning. Cardinals get a run here. Plenty of time to get another one. Playing for the run. Coleman. Boston. Thompson is tagging up. He's going to head for third, and he'll make it there easily. Coleman now 1 for 3. He's hit the ball well all 3 times.
But two of those times he's hit the ball in the air, and they do not want him to hit the ball in the air, and he doesn't want to hit it in the air.
There's some Ozzie Smith fans here. Maybe you can hear in the background. The Wizard coming up. Runner at third and 2 down in the 5th inning. Oz has singled to left, and he has hit one back to Dwight Gooden. Each team with 5 hits. Now those Mets chanters are responding. Let's go Mets. That's been a trademark of Mets fans since the beginning, the early days of the new breed. Back in 1962, the Mets, an expansion team playing at the old Polo Grounds. One of the worst teams of all time. They lost 120 games. There were no Dwight Goodens on that ball club. There was a guy named Roger Craig.
Yeah, Roger often speaks of that year. He said it was, even though he lost a lot of ball games, it was exciting. I mean, there were a lot of unique players on that team.
Latigan, he lost 24 that year, 10 and 24. 1 ball, 1 strike to Ozzie Smith, trying to deliver a run against Dwight Gooden, against whom he has had excellent success this year and in years past. 1 for 2 tonight against him. Milt Thompson led off the inning, drawing a walk. He's now at third base. O'Malley's still playing very shallow at third for the Mets. In the air, and a routine play for McReynolds that ends the inning. Pinella would like.
Yeah, I'm sure they're starting to think about it. But I told you at the beginning of the season, I said it all along, the Giants will not go away.
Here's Darrell Boston into deep right field, but caught by Milt Thompson near the 358-foot marker. And Boston is now 1 for 3. 2 balls he's hit well have both been caught out there.
Well, the ball, he gets a little bit on top of it. The ball starts to sink as Thompson gets back to make the catch.
Here's Dave Magadan. He's flying to right, and he has singled home a run. Talk about, it's almost the way Scott Gereltz has gone. That's the way the Giants have gone. When he was pitching poorly, the Giants fell way back. The forkball is low to Magadan. There's Bud Harrelson, 46 years of age. He was a player for the Mets as far back as 1965. 1967, he became a regular. Now the manager of this ball club. Bud Harrelson. 1-0 delivery for a strike.
And this guy here is grateful that Bud Harrelson took over. Magadan, he was one of the things that Harrelson did. He made Magadan the everyday first baseman and did the same thing with Mackie Sasser behind the plate. And both of these guys have responded by helping the Mets climb into first place.
Only 1 player in the history of the Mets played in more ball games for the Mets than Bud Harrelson. That was Ed Kranepool. Ball outside. Kranepool, what was he, 18 years old? Got a look-see in 62.
He was one of their first big bonus babies, and he did a good job for him. He was one of the bonus babies for the Mets when they first came into existence, and Rusty Staub was his counterpart with the Houston Colt 45s at that time.
Magadan drives one deep into right field, but Thompson at the edge of the track is waiting. 2 gone in the inning. Harrelson's Mets, there's the record under Harrelson, 37 and 18. The hitting all of a sudden got a lot better. The pitching a little bit better, but look at those runs per game.
You know, you question when they make a managerial change like that, and you say, well, did Bud Harrelson become a great hitting instructor and make the hitting turn around like it did, or the pitching for that matter? It's kind of an interesting situation because Davey Johnson had done a great job for the Mets over the last 6 years. He had a better winning percentage than any other manager in baseball. So it's kind of a unique situation, and a lot of times the managers end up paying for it with their jobs, but they're not sure exactly what happens, why the team all of a sudden turns around. But I don't think there's any doubt that Bud Harrelson has had a settling influence on the Mets and has made it possible for them to relax and play a little better.
2-0 the count. Jeffries down the left field line. If it's fair, it could be trouble. It is a fair ball. Barehanded by Coleman. Jeffries going to test him. The tag, safe! A double for Jeffries. Great play by Coleman. Perfect throw, but still Jeffries was able to beat it.
Well, it's an excellent play by both. Jeffries, he made up his mind as soon as he hit it, he was going for second base. And by Coleman, watch, he barehands the ball, sets himself, and makes the throw. Now, the problem is the throw bounces too close to second base, and it kind of handcuffs Oquendo. If the ball would have bounced a little bit further out front, Oquendo could have caught it and made the tag before Jeffries got to second base.
Well, and because he got to second base, as opposed to hitting single, they're going to take the bat out of Strawberry's hands. There's ball 2. They're giving him the intentional walk. It'll be the second walk of the game.
Well, it's been very obvious throughout the ball game that De Leon did not want to pitch to Strawberry anyway. So this gives him an opportunity not to have to throw a strike to him. He can go ahead and put him at first base.
He threw 4 wide ones that first time anyway.
Exactly. And Red Shandies doesn't mind as well. So
There's Red.
Well, again, Coleman, watch. See, bare hands the ball, sets himself, but watch the throw. He hits too close to second base. Now it kind of handcuffs Okendo. See him lean back, and before he can right himself and make the tag, Jeffries is in there.
Jeffries was excited. He'll turn 23 Wednesday. Hard to keep in mind that he's still that young. Here's McReynolds. He's driven home a run tonight with a single, and he has walked. 1 for 1. Ball 1. 2 men on, 2 men out. The Mets are leading 2-0. Greg Jeffries is 3 for 3 tonight in this game, by the way. His double is the first extra base hit of this game by anybody. There he is at second. De Leon checks him. 2 balls and no strikes. Mackey Sasser, a left-handed hitter, is on deck. He's 19, and he won only 2 1 year.
And it's amazing with the kind of stuff that he does have.
3-0 the count. There's Jeffries at second. And Strawberry at first. Both ready to go in anything. 1985, De Leon went 2-19 for Pittsburgh. He went to the White Sox, and from the White Sox to St. Louis. Where's that one in there for a strike? 3-1. De Leon is from the Dominican Republic, but he moved to New Jersey with his family when he was only 11 years old, so he grew up in this area. Perth Amboy, New Jersey. His idol as a youngster is Mike Torres, another big right-hander, pretty good pitcher. 3-1 pitch. Foul right back toward us and into the.
And Goodens is 3.94 coming into tonight's contest.
Runners are going, and ball 4. The bases are loaded. For Mackey Sasser. All of this started with 2 down. The 3rd inning. But could not break it open. 2 down, 3 on. The pitch. Curveball. Ball 1.
It's hard for me to believe that he has a good enough curveball to throw to the left-handers, because he kind of throws the ball kind of 3/4 sidearm to the right-handers when he throws the slider. That's okay. But he tries to get on top to throw the breaking ball to the left-hander. He wants it to go down a little more, and he's not getting up on top.
Ball 2. Well, he's right on the edge now. Okendo in from second base to speak with him. Shane Dinch talking with the Cardinal Brain Trust in the third base dugout. Bud Harrelson hoping that some of that great hitting, which he has helped discover apparently, will show itself right here. And the fans now making the big noise. The old Mets chant echoing through the ballpark. The 2-0 pitch. Deep to right field. Down the line. This one is a home run. A grand slam for Mackey Sasser. And they have busted it open. 6-0 New York.
Well, it's a fastball, and it's about belt high. And Sasser knows what to do with it. It's a line drive. Right down the line. Good for 4 runs, and that'll be all for Jose De Leon, as out comes Red Shandy.
First grand slam of the career of Mackey Sasser. There's Shandins to take the ball from De Leon. He had nowhere else to go with it. He was 2-0, bases loaded. He had to get a strike.
Well, see, that's where I have a problem. The first pitch, he's got to go after him. He's already nibbled and walked Kevin McReynolds to load the bases. You have to go after the next hitter. Threw him a breaking ball, got away. then a fastball away. Now it's 2-0. Where do you go from there? Now you have to give him a fastball. If you throw the fastball earlier in the count, you have a better chance to do something with it. But Sasser is sitting on the fastball looking dead red all the way, and he just turns on it and it's gone.
And dead red birds could be the word right now. His left is his mentor, not his hitting mentor, but his catching mentor, his teacher, Doc Edwards. Longtime baseball man, a fine catcher. First ball swinging is O'Malley. For the third straight time, he hits one sharply right to Walling. The inning is over. DePino with one pitch gets the final out. But before that, 4 runs scoring on the Sasser grand slam. Big moment for him. His first ever. 6-0 Mets after last 19 games. Longest streak in the big leagues going. Jeffries, can he get him? No, he cannot. He got to the ball, but couldn't hold it. And Willie McGee, I'm sure they'll give him a base hit for that one. And they have. So it is 20 games in a row now.
Well, Willie McGee has been hitting the ball very hard lately, and he grounds it sharply up the middle. Jeffries tries to get to it, but about the time he gets to it, he loses his balance. And once he misses it, no chance to get Willie McGee, who can fly down the first baseline. So it's a base hit.
That's the 6th hit of the game for the Cardinals. Here is Denny Walling. He's grounded to second and singled. 1 for 2. 6-0 the Mets lead. When the Cardinals are down by 6, not only do they not have Guerrero and Zeal in there tonight, there are only 2 real potent home run threats, but kind of puts a little bit of a crimp in their running game down by 6. That's out of play. McGee has stolen 25 bases this year, been caught only 7.
I think that's one thing that people do not understand fully, is that what power does for you. Power really helps you when you're behind in a ball game to make up some runs quickly. You need power hitters to be able to come from behind. You don't need them all the time to get you ahead, but if you're behind, you need some power hitters to be able to get back in the ball game quickly.
1 ball and 2 strikes. Well, the Mets with the grand slam, they hit a lot of home runs. Now 118 up to the moment. The Cardinals with 42. The Mets lead the National League. Cardinals are last in the National League. Joe, that's the point you're making.
Yeah, and they, like you say, up to date, they've hit 28 home runs now in 26 ball games. So you need power to make up a deficit, and I think that's what the Cardinals lack. So when they get behind, it's very tough to catch up.
Strike 3 called, and Walling knew it. The breaking ball from looking, and he has singled. 1 for 2. 1 out, 1 on, 6th inning. Ball 1. 1 ball and no strikes. Mackey Sasser, the man of the hour for the Mets. He will turn 28 this coming Friday. And they got him from the Pittsburgh Pirates in a trade. That could be 2. Elster to first, 2, a double play. 4-6-3. And it's all going the Mets' way. As a game as a broadcaster prior to actually being inducted into the Hall of Fame. Ball 1 to Kevin Elster. That's next Sunday. Joe Morgan and Jim Palmer will be enshrined, immortalized in Cooperstown.
Now you're scaring me. You're making me nervous when you say all those things.
With the plaque there bearing their likeness from that day forward and forevermore. And 100 years from now, Joe, the youngster will walk through those hallowed halls, see that plaque, read about the deeds of Joe Morgan and Jim Palmer, and say, John Miller, tell me about him, will you? Because I'm going to be there, Joe, guiding those tours, I'll tell you that. So, yes, I knew him personally. 2-1 the count to Elster. DePino delivers, and this will be caught by Milt Thompson. There is 1 away. So a double play hit by.
On a hard hit ground ball, it really will not be close at first, even though Pendleton runs well.
Here's Dwight Gooden. He is fouled to first and lined out to short. 6-0 the Mets ahead. Dwight's given up 6 hits in this game, but he has a shutout going. There is ball 1.
Well, this is the Dwight Gooden I told you about that we may see tonight. He doesn't always strike out 12, 13 hitters anymore, but he is always in control of the ball game.
Big swing.
The one thing that he does now is he keeps the fastball down, which keeps it in the ballpark. Whereas in the past, when he had the overpowering fastball, or when he does now on occasion, he throws the fastball up. And it's tougher to catch up with his fastball when it's up in the strike zone.
2-1 the count. Well, when you strike out all of those hitters, as he did as a rookie, 261 strikeouts in only 218 innings, you have to throw a lot of pitches to do that. Just ask Nolan Ryan.
Well, it takes its toll. You're no doubt about that.
Oquendo throws out Dwight Gooden. 2 men gone. Howard Johnson is not here tonight, but Howard's such a great part of this rivalry between the Mets and Cardinals. Let's go back to 1987 in St. Louis. And Hojo blasted this one. This is a booming home run in that big ballpark. And Whitey said, hey, Tony Pena, he was the catcher, get that bat. We want it examined. Now watch this. No, sorry, Howard. And they indeed, Joe West, the umpire, they took it out of play and had it x-rayed. They had that rule that year that you could do that, what, 1 time a game or something. Whitey was just convinced that Howard, who had never hit that many home runs before that, must have been doing something illegal to that bat. But the tests that they did showed that it was just a regular legal bat. Howard did have all those muscles, and he's been doing it ever since, we might point out. But coming out of late too, Howard Johnson with 57 RBIs now, 15 home runs. He too was a late bloomer this year for the Mets. Just about all of them were. Here's Darrell Boston. He's 1 for 3. 2 down in the 6th inning. So those of you who were tuning in tonight and were Howard Johnson fans and were disappointed to find out that Hojo was not here, well, we've shown you Howard. 0-2 the count. They're hopeful that he'll be able to travel with the ball club to Montreal for their series beginning Tuesday. 2-strike pitch. DePino is low with ball 1. Trading deadline is this Tuesday, by the way. A lot of rumors been swirling about. Mike Scott's name keeps being talked about. The Astros are in a definite mode to start rebuilding. They're having a terrible year. But the Pirates declaring the other day, Larry Doty saying, hey, they're asking for too much. We will not be making a deal for Mike Scott. Into deep right. Thompson sprinting back, still going back, and he's got it. Nice play by Milt Thompson. It's the 3rd long fly ball hit by Darrell Boston, and they've all
his eyes right on the ball.
2 strikes the count to Jose Oquendo, who has a single, and he is flied out. Bullpen activity for the Cardinals. The left-hander Ken Daly gotten up out there. The pitcher is due up 4th in this inning. There's Daly. Dave Ricketts, the bullpen coach, out there with him. So if somebody gets on, we will see a hitter probably for DePino. That's why Daly's up out there. 7th inning, 6-0 the Mets. Back at Dwight Gooden leading. That's a ball. Dwight has been such a dominating pitcher in his years in the big leagues. Until this year, he had never at any point of any season had a losing record. This year he lost the first start he made. That was the first time he'd ever had a losing record. He'd never even been 0-1 before. And then he lost again.
Now he gets a chance to see how the other half lives, right?
And I think they were concerned because he was coming back. He missed a great deal of time last year with some arm trouble.
Well, I think we saw him in spring training, and I mentioned this at that time. I felt like it would take him a little while before he adjusted.
Taking Oquendo a bit of time there to adjust. Good off-speed delivery, the 4th strikeout for Doc. Speaking of strikeouts, we'll see Nolan Ryan Tuesday night on ESPN. Again, trying for number 300. He was unable to get it last Wednesday against the New York Yankees. Bob Guerin, seen here hitting that home run against him. So Ryan will try it again against the Milwaukee Brewers. 8:30 Eastern. First half of our doubleheader on Tuesday night on ESPN. This is Pagnazzi. Short hop by O'Malley. Nice play. 2 down. Again, the big leaguers, they make it look easy.
Well, it was not an easy play because he had to take it on the short hop, and he doesn't get there quick enough to get it on the short hop. He kind of gets it on the in-between hop, comes up with it, and the rest of it's easy. It's easy to throw on the run if you're running toward where you're going. But this is the tough part, getting that ball on the in-between hop. The short hop is when it first comes off the ground. The big hop is when it's at its highest point. And the in-between hop, of course, is right in between those, and that's the toughest time to catch the ball.
Lest you think we were just divvying up our adjectives and just arbitrarily assigning them.
Saying that that's a tough play, but it is a tough play because of the in-between hop.
These are real terms here. Now you see Dave Collins out of the on-deck circle. He would bat for DePino if Milt Thompson can get on base here. 6-0, the Mets ahead. Dwight Gooden has had one shutout this year. At 20 lifetime shutouts. Dave Magadan. That was the perfect hop. Was that the big hop?
That's the big hop.
The big hop. 3 up and 3 down. Magadan will lead it off in the last of the 7th. The New York Mets here at Shea Stadium. Wednesday night again. A look at the red-hot Chicago White Sox, who have the 3rd best record in all of Major League Baseball. Only the Mets and the Athletics have been better up till now. It's hard to say now. I think that the White Sox are a fluke. I mean, they had this record almost after 100 games. That's a few games beyond a fluke.
I don't think there's any doubt that they're for real. They're playing great.
White Sox and the Red Sox. The Red Sox only 1 game out in the East. White Sox just a couple of games out in the West. Dave Magadan, 1 for 3, leads it off. Frank DePino still in there. Jeffries and Strawberry will follow. Up the middle, base hit into center field. Second hit for Magadan, number 8 for the Mets.
Well, it's a fastball, and it's about the middle of the plate, and Magadan hits it right back through the box. DePino gets his glove up a little late, goes into center field for a base hit.
Here's Greg Jeffries coming up. Magadan over at first base. Another 2-hit game for him. Jeffries, a switch hitter, batting right-handed down. Nice scoop by Pendleton, but a high throw. And Magadan going into the bag. Well, he was getting out of the way there. And
yeah, but you should always slide to the bag. And if he would have slid to the bag, he would have been safe. It's a great play by Pendleton. That's that in-between hop we're talking about. Watch this. And he tries to get it on the short hop, but he can't get there quick enough. Now he comes up with it, but he makes a high throw to second base. Magadan is way out in right field, as you can see. And I know a lot of managers would fine him for doing that. You're supposed to slide into the bag.
well, as you saw there, he literally was out in right field, but figuratively he came from out of left field with that maneuver.
Nice play at pickup by Pendleton. He wants to start the double play, but he throws too high to second base. But it's a great pickup.
Jeffries at first. Jeffries now 3 for 4. Strawberry has been walked twice, and he's grounded out once. That's a soaring pop fly. Milt Thompson into shallow right center. Jeffries will go back to first. 2 down in the 7th inning.
You know, I was watching Jose Canseco take batting practice the other day, and he was hitting balls just like that, high, and I'd say he just missed it. But his were going about 20 rows deep into the stands, and then during the game we telecast that night, he did the same thing. So he hits the highest, longest home runs of anyone I've ever seen.
All right, what was it? 3 weeks ago in Cleveland, and he hit one a mile high, and it landed 460 feet away from home plate. Ball 1. Knocked down by Pagnazzi. 6-0. The Mets leading in the 7th. Mackey Sasser's grand slam. The big blow came in the 5th inning. Sasser acquired for the Pirates in a deal that sent Randy Milligan, who had some fine minor league seasons for the Mets. Milligan went to the Pirates in that deal. And the Pirates, after one season, they gave Milligan 80-something at bats and didn't like what they saw, and they sent him to the Orioles and got very little in return. And now Milligan has started to blossom into a star for the Orioles. Leads the majors in walks. He's got 20 home runs. And we'll see him next Sunday night. We're going to look at George Brett and the Royals and Randy Milligan and those Orioles. Cal Ripken. 3-0 the count.
There's Darryl Strawberry. You can see the writing on the side of his head says straw. You can only do that if you're leading the league in home runs. You can only get away with that.
That's his hair. He had the haircut that
Yeah,
way.
that's his haircut, and it says straw.
I'm going to do that, Joe.
No.
Ball 4.
John, you're not tied for the National League lead in home runs. You can't do that.
Well, I'll keep my cap on. And slam in the 5th inning. $43,738 in the ballpark tonight. The official paid crowd, 41,946. If you're keeping track of the Mets ledgers.
National League's a little different than the American League. The American League counts tickets sold. The National League count people that come through the turnstiles.
And the American League doesn't let the pitchers bat.
Yeah, good point.
That's 2 differences.
Yeah.
0-1 the count. 2 down. Sasser has grounded out, popped out, and then on a 2-0 pitch, he hit a screamer down the right field line for a grand slam.
Let me ask you a question here. We were referring to that Vince Coleman situation earlier. Should Mackey Sasser try to bunt here? They're ahead 6-0.
You mean as the bunt being the equivalent of stealing when you're way ahead?
Right. Or the fact that should he not try to hit another home run or try to hit the ball hard someplace? The point is, yeah, I mean,
if he hit a 3-run homer, then they wouldn't be upset.
Right.
But if he bunted, they'd be very upset.
Exactly. That's the point I'm making. So I don't quite understand the logic behind it, but it's something that's been in baseball lore for 100 years. You know, you're showing them up if you steal a base 6-0, but you're not showing them up if you hit a 3-run homer. So that's the way it goes.
Frank DePino trying to keep Sasser from showing him up here. Strike 3 called. That's one way of doing it.
See, they're not mad at him now.
But he won't get a chance to pitch the shutout here. And that is something that might have raised a few eyebrows a few years ago, but nowadays there are other priorities. Dwight, they've not pitched in a week. 292 pitches. He's well ahead. They get him out of there. Dave Collins, the pinch hitter. First ball swinging. Nice play by O'Malley. 1 away. A quick out there.
Dave Collins has been a good pinch hitter throughout his career. He's been a good player. And he's a switch hitter, and he smashes one down to O'Malley. Like I say, a lot of times the infielder would drop down to his knees so he can get a little better view of the hop of the baseball. And it keeps him down as well. See, he stays down on the ball, backhands it, and the rest is easy.
Now, when a big league player makes a throw like that, sometimes you'll see him pause a little bit as he reaches into the glove.
Well, you want to grab the ball across the seams so that it doesn't sink on you or sail. You grab the ball across the seams, you get a truer flight on the baseball.
Are there ever times when a fielder is so rushed that he just can't do that?
Yeah, a lot of times you can't do that if it's a bang-bang play at first. But if you have time on a ball like that, you can take your time and find the seams and make a good throw.
Vince Coleman, the hitter. He is 1 for 3. 6-0 the Mets ahead. Ojeda delivers high. Ojeda started here in one of the games of the doubleheader last Thursday and was beaten 3-1. And the veteran, he's 32 years of age. He was an 18-game winner in their World's Championship year, 1986. None too happy about the current state of the pitching staff, namely that he's not one of the starters. Ron Darling has moved into the rotation now. Seems like one of them is always going to be unhappy. They've got the 6 starters all with big league experience and quality experience. But Darling's in there now, and Ojeda's in the bullpen again. 2-1 the count. Boston has to go a long way, and it's over his head and finally over the wall. An automatic double for Vince Coleman. Too bad. It would have been interesting, would have been fun to watch him let it all hang out there.
Yes, it would have been. Sean Dunston hit 3 triples in yesterday's ball game in Montreal, and this would have been at least a triple for Vince Coleman. Boston's going back. The toughest ball is the ball hit straight over your head if you're an outfielder. And he went straight back. He couldn't get an angle on the ball. And when he reached up, he really lost track of the ball and he couldn't get his judgment was a little off.
So Vince will have to go back to second. Here is Ozzie Smith, 1 out runner at second. 7 hits for the Cardinals now. The Mets only have 8, but one of the Mets' 8 hits drove in 4 runs. Ball 1. Talking earlier, Joe, but trading deadline coming Tuesday. Oftentimes there's a lot of activity right near that deadline. Teams wanting to make those deals to solidify their roster. A couple of deals already made this weekend. There's a strike to Ozzie. The Red Sox picking up Mike Marshall from these New York Mets for a couple of minor leaguers, and the Blue Jays picking up the veteran left-hander John Candelaria to bolster their bullpen. Gave up this pretty good young talent too in the likes of Nelson Liriano to Minnesota. That's the play made by Jeffries, and the 2 men are gone with Coleman over to third. This copyrighted telecast is presented by authority of Major League Baseball and may not be reproduced or retransmitted in any form without the express written consent of Major League Baseball.
You know, I was talking to Willie McGee before the ball game about his free agency situation and the fact that he may become a free agent at the end of the year. And he wouldn't say it directly to me, but I feel like he's hurt a little bit because he's been with the Cardinals all these years, done a good job, played hurt, and he's having a good year, yet there's not been any effort to sign him. And he feels like, you know, that maybe there's not a two-way street here as far as loyalty is concerned.
But let me ask you
this.
But
he won't say that.
Isn't it to his advantage, though, if they don't want to sign him? I mean, he's going to get some big money somewhere. He's having a great year.
Yeah, but it's not to his advantage because maybe he wants to stay in St. Louis.
But the Cardinals may well make him an offer at that point. Maybe he'll have some other offers that can kind of make them make a better offer.
Well, if you get other offers, then it confuses the individual if there are too many dollar signs someplace else.
Jeffries, did you teach him that play?
No.
Wow. Now they're showing off. Although I have a feeling that maybe he didn't plan that one. What a play this one is. Don't show this one to the kids. Yeah, then throw him out from there. Pretty good arm to do that. That'll be on the plays of the week.
By Mitsubishi, bringing you a full line of award-winning automobiles. See them all at your Mitsubishi Motors dealer. By Budweiser, Beechwood aged for that clean, crisp taste. This Bud's for you. And by Embassy Suites Hotels, where you can afford to upgrade to a suite every trip. Call 1-800-EMBASSY.
John Miller, Joe Morgan. Joe on his way to the Hall of Fame next Sunday in Cooperstown. And we're going to look again to the play here that Jeffries won't remember if he ever goes into the Hall of Fame. He'll try and forget all about this one.
Well, I've watched him very closely tonight. He's improved a lot, but see, he's right back on his heels right there. That's why he falls. Not because of the infield or anything like that. See, he's back on his heels. As an infielder, you cannot get back on your heels, but he makes a great play from a sitting position to throw out the fleet Willie McGee. And they're having a big laugh about it in the dugout.
Ah, yes, you can laugh when you're in first.
Yeah. And
6 runs
ahead.
Ken Daly's on the pitch now, facing Tom O'Malley. O'Malley's had a game of pepper going with first baseman Denny Wall. He's hit 3 balls to him.
And that's very unusual for Tom O'Malley because he's not really a pull hitter. He usually hits the ball left center to right center, but he's pulled 3 balls right down the right field line.
Elster and then Ojeda will be the other hitters due up. The Mets bullpen is busy. So is the Cardinals right now. 6-0, last of the 8th inning. Fastball from Daly for a strike. 1-1. Daly is another fellow can be a free agent at the end of the year. Mel Stottlemyre, pitching coach, chatting with Ron Darling in the Mets dugout. Well, you wonder what the Cardinals' strategy really is now. They've got these fellas. I mean,
well, you got 2 guys, McGee and Coleman, but I just can't imagine them losing them. But that may happen. You know, I think they're 2 real good players, especially at the top of your order with speed. It's not easy to find players with their ability and the speed they have to put at the top of your lineup.
And this fella, Ken Daly, also can be a free agent at the end of the year.
And there's question mark whether John Tudor will be a free agent or not.
Tudor was telling us before the game he didn't think he could be.
Yeah, well, there's John Tudor. He will be the pitcher in their next ball game. But I'm not sure that he will be a free agent, although we see his name on the list.
That's ball 4. O'Malley draws the leadoff walk here in the 8th inning from Daly. Now let's take a look at the Budweiser storyline for tonight's game. And the story is Dwight Gooden with 7 shutout innings. They weren't even sure until today that he would even be able to pitch tonight. Some arm trouble. Sasser, a grand slam in that 5th inning to break it open. And the Mets first 6 hitters in the order doing all of the damage tonight. Here is Elster. He is 0 for 3, fouled out of play, 0-1.
Now, Kevin,
well, you know, Joe, to get back to the idea of the free agents, I mean,
right.
If they let them all go, they've got some big holes to fill next year. They have an outfielder by the name of Bernard Gilkey that they're high on, another fellow by the name of Langford, and they think that these guys can be very fine big leaguers. And yet, to lose that many quality players all at once, that's treading some dangerous waters there.
Well, I would think so, but you know, the Cardinals have to make their decisions based upon what they know and maybe things they know that we don't know. But it'd be kind of tough to break in rookies, you know.
That we don't know? Are you kidding me?
But to break in, you know, guys you're not sure. I mean, they may be high on these guys, but are you sure that they can play in the major leagues right now? But
2-1.
I would think it would be awfully tough to lose 2/3 of your starting outfield and still go forward. But here again, like I said, they may know some things that we don't know.
Well, I have a feeling that they do because we're trying to figure the logic of it. That's foul and back out of play. Another thing is if you're in negotiations for a trade and another team is not offering you what you feel is fair value for a player, well, you don't want to come out publicly and say, well, we have to trade these guys. I mean, your only leverage at that point is to say, well, we'll just keep them then.
Well, I don't think you have a lot of leverage anyway when you're trying to trade potential free agents of those 2 guys' quality. First of all, the other team has to sign them, or they're not going to go ahead and make the trade, I would think.
But then if they want to keep them, why not go out and sign them? Here's a list of the players who could become free agents at the end of the year, and Tudor's name's on that list. And again, Tudor himself told us that he didn't think so. But it's been written now in many places. Coleman, McGee, Pendleton, the starting third baseman. Danny Cox has been hurt all year. Daly.
I think the 2 guys at the top are the key guys. You know, Pendleton has won Gold Gloves. He's a good player, but he's not having a real good year. So his value on the open market may not be as high as the other 2 guys.
Coleman back, still back, and it's over his head. O'Malley will be held at third, and Elster is into second with a stand-up double.
Elster gets a high fastball, and he drives it on a line, and even the fleet-footed Vince Coleman cannot get back in time to make the catch. See, it's a high fastball, and he turns on it. It's just a line drive. They were playing Elster very shallow all the way around in the outfield, so Coleman could not get back in time to make the catch.
So the Mets are in business again, already leading 6-0. And Bobby Ojeda comes up, the pitcher, batting left-handed. Dwight Gooden went 0 for 3 while he was in there. Cardinals bring the infield in, down by 6 already. 9 hits for the Mets. Bobby Ojeda. And that's ball 1. Well, the rumors go around. That's, I guess, one of the things about baseball, more than any other sport, trade rumors.
One of the great things about baseball.
The 1-0 delivery. 1 ball and 1 strike. Darrell Boston is on deck.
Well, they're playing the infield very tight. The Cardinals, they cannot afford to fall any farther behind than the 6-0 deficit they already have. So they're going to make a play at the plate on any ground ball hit to the infield.
Ball and a strike to Bobby Ojeda. Strike 2. There's Tom Niedenfuhr, veteran right-handed reliever, warming up in the Cardinal bullpen. Daly is the third Cardinals pitcher of the game. De Leon went 4 2/3 and gave up all 6 of the runs. DePino went 2 1/3 and gave up just 1 hit, no runs. He struck him out with a breaking ball. Real good cut there by Ojeda, though.
Well, it was a good cut until the ball started to break. If it would have stayed straight.
He's 1 for 4. The infield stays in. Strike 1. Another left-handed hitter, Magadan, is on deck. 6-0 Mets, last of the 8th. Nolan Ryan goes for number 300 Tuesday night, 8:30 Eastern. We'll be with you again next Sunday night. At this point, scheduled from Baltimore, Kansas City, and the Orioles. There's a ball. 1 ball, 1 strike. It'll be interesting. You have a feeling there'll be at least a handful of trades made by the deadline?
Well, I'm not sure, because a lot of player contracts, the way they're written, make it very difficult to make trades sometimes. And then players that have leverage wanting extensions onto their contract or relocation fees or whatever, sometimes it makes it very difficult for general managers to make a trade for a guy that they may want or they feel like can solidify their ball club down the stretch. So trades are not easily made nowadays, so I don't expect a lot of them to be made.
Shallow right center. McGee takes it. Here's the tag by O'Malley. Here's the throw, and he is out by plenty. Willie McGee gunning down O'Malley. And that ends the inning. Double play from the center fielder to the catcher. Pagnazzi had the plate well blocked.
Well, McGee, it does a great thing here. Watch, look how relaxed he is. He doesn't rush it. He just makes a strong and accurate throw right on the money. Look at that right there. Plate is blocked by Pagnazzi. No way for O'Malley to get to the plate.
6-0 Mets. We're heading for the 9th.
If there's something missing in your lineup, reach for the nutrition of 100% whole grain. But before you reach for this, or this, or this leading cereal, reach for Wheaties, the one made with 100% whole grain. So if you want to make a smart change,
Mark, that's going to be enough for tonight.
you better get your whole grain.
Next time you better eat your Wheaties.
Going to wrap this one up. We get the combined shutout with Dwight Gooden. Rex Hudler, a right-handed hitter, pinch hitting for Denny Walling. Strike 2. Rex Hudler, veteran, was with Montreal last year. This guy can play all over the place. He steals a lot of bases and is a real valuable man particularly to a ball club in a pennant race.
Well, I think he's a good player. He runs well. He can pinch run. Like you say, he can play a lot of different positions. And he swings the bat pretty well.
He loves to play. Screwball fouled out of play.
This is the last play of the retired Mets in the 8th inning. Tom O'Malley tags up, but you can see Pagnazzi has the ball in plenty of time, and he has him blocked off the plate by about 4 feet. No chance for O'Malley to get there.
Strike 3, and Hudler is quickly gone in the 9th inning. First strikeout for Ojeda.
Here's the throw in from Willie McGee. Again, Pagnazzi has him blocked.
He got him every time. O'Malley still hasn't gotten around.
He went around and touched the plate.
Here's Pendleton, 1 for 3 in the game. Talking about the trades, Joe, you brought up the point of with the contracts and all of the hassles that could be inherent now in making a trade. Easy play for Jeffries. 2 men gone. There's Bob Murphy. He's the voice of the Mets on WFAN radio here in New York. Been broadcasting Mets baseball since the first day of the Mets. The Mets' very first game in 1962 was against the St. Louis Cardinals in St. Louis. And Murph's been there ever since. He used to be the broadcaster along with Lindsey Nelson and Ralph Kiner. Ralph Kiner still does Mets games on television with Tim McCarver, a great crew. The other day, the Mets just did hold on in the 9th inning. They had 10-3 in the 9th. They gave up 6 runs when the game finally ended. He drew a lot of nationwide notoriety, as he said, and that's the ball game. The Mets have won the damn thing 10-9. Bob Murphy, one of the outstanding broadcasters in the game. 2-1 the count. Oquendo, the hitter. If you trade McGee right now, might cost you $600,000 in salary, and then he might be gone at the end of the year anyway.
Right.
Another big gamble for a team.
Yeah, I don't think teams want to trade for free agents.
Magadan, this could do it. And it's all over. The Mets get the shutout. And they take the series from the Cardinals 3 games out of 5. And the Mets retain a 1-game lead in the National League East over the Pittsburgh Pirates.
Well, it was a very fine ball game by the Mets. They got good pitching from both Dwight Gooden and Ojeda, and they got offense from Mackey Sasser's grand slam. So it's a typical Mets victory, although they don't shut every team out every night, but it's typical. They've been averaging over 5 runs a ball game.
So we saw the Mets at their best tonight, and people have been seeing them at their best for a long, long while. Joe, next Sunday into the Hall of Fame. Our thoughts will be with you. All the best, and congratulations again.
Thank you very much.
Joe Morgan heading into the Hall of Fame next Sunday. We'll be in Baltimore, Kansas City, and the Orioles, George Brett, and those hot young Orioles. And Tuesday, don't forget, at 8:30 Eastern, Nolan Ryan again tries for number 300 at Milwaukee against the Brewers. Stay tuned. Sports Center follows. John Miller for Joe Morgan. Hope you enjoyed it. The Mets beat the Cardinals 6-0. Good night.